see you guys in the dark.
I was about the age of 13 when this story took place. I lived in an old house just on the outside of a large city and was surrounded by cornfields and forests. I had lived there all of my life before this happened. It was a dreary summer night, which is mostly normal for the place that I live. But on this particular night, something just felt off. I had come home from my soccer practice around 6 p.m. My parents always had me in bed by 8. The night went on as usual. I ate dinner, played with my little sister, and did some weightlifting before bed. I got in bed around 7:45. This story will make better sense if I tell you some things about me. I'm a restless sleeper. I toss and turn and get up periodically through the night, and I've always had a fascination with the afterlife. I'm not sure exactly what time I fell asleep, but I didn't really have my usual episodes through the night. This was the first night that I slept peacefully in years. I was suddenly awoken by a strange noise coming from the bathroom in my bedroom. Since I had to use the bathroom anyways, I decided to go check it out. I thought that it might be a mouse or a bat since we live in the country, and the house is old and has holes in the older walls. I went into the bathroom. I didn't see anything, so I proceeded on my way to go pee. After peeing, I washed my hands and face, and when I wash my face, I look up into the mirror that overhangs my sink. Since there was still water in my eyes, my vision was kind of blurry. I couldn't really see much, but I thought that I saw something behind me. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I dried my face off and looked up into the mirror. Right behind me, there was a little girl clutching my body, almost as if she was hiding from something. Her ghostly outline scared me at first, but as I kept looking, I could tell that whatever was scaring her was coming from the basement. So I walked to my basement door, and I opened it up slightly. At first, I thought I was very scared of what might be behind it. This being said, I've lived in this house my entire life, and I've never been in the basement. My dad mentioned to me that it has 3 separate parts, all separated by small windows that you could barely fit through. So I walked down to the bottom where the light switch was. I turned it on, and all seemed like it was okay. That's until I heard what sounded like crying from one of the other parts of the basement. In my mind, I was thinking, fuck this shit. But in my heart, I knew I had to see what it was. So I ventured through the part of the basement, and the light couldn't reach the other side, where the other room was. It was pitch black. I was still hearing the crying, but since it was so dark, I couldn't see anything. Something gave me the urge to go to the far corner of the room, because the way the moonlight reflected off the floor, you could kind of see with the little light that you had. I walked over to the corner, stared directly in the middle of the room. There, in the middle of the room, was a chair. It had shackles for the feet, and what looked like to be some kind of restraint for arms, or something like that. That's when I noticed that there was someone sitting in that chair. I walked closer only to reveal that it was the same little girl ghost that had been crying previously in the bathroom. She was also crying there, and had needles stuck in her arms, draining some kind of fluid into her. All was quiet till she started screaming. It was so high-pitched I thought that it sounded like a siren, or something of that nature. She was saying words, but I couldn't make out anything that she was saying, until she spoke 5 menacing words that made my heart sink. She said, "Get out, Daddy is coming." Not even thinking twice, I sprinted up the basement stairs, tripping over my own feet, and fell flat on my face. Once I reached the top, I got back up and ran to my parents' room. I told them what had happened. They went down there and checked everything out. I told them about the chair and the little girl that was screaming. They told me that there was no chair in the basement, and there have never been 3 parts of the basement. Me not believing them, I walked back down there, and the room that I saw the chair in was not there. There had only been 2 parts of that basement, my dad said. I told him what I saw, and how I knew there had to be some kind of mistake. But I never did see that part of the basement again. I'm 18 years old now, and I decided to do some research on the house to see if there's any history that could have caused that. I came across an article of a man who had been arrested in 1868 for doing lab experiments on all of his children. After the man was arrested, the police found all 12 skeletons of his children stuffed behind the basement stairs, under debris and concrete. Now that I finally moved out of that house, and that I finally have an answer as to what I saw that night, I am finally at peace. But those 5 words still hang over me to this day. Get out, Daddy is coming. A little backstory behind my family. I came from a family full of psychics, and I have some kind of powers. I'm an empath, and I have felt others' feelings. It's not a good feeling to feel before I start rambling on. Let's just get into this. Well, I was 6 years old, and I was getting ready to go to bed. I went to bed, and before I was about to go to sleep, there was a knocking on my window. I live on the 2nd story, and it was nighttime, so I was wondering what it could be. It couldn't be a person. That was where our power box was. My next experience. It was a month or 2 after this. I had a dream. And note, I had this dream here recently too. But this dream was me walking through the hallway. I went to go check on my dad since he sleeps in the living room. I went to go wake him up. He turns on the TV, and we talk for a minute or 2. All of a sudden, a black figure appears, opens up the door, and then the dream ends. My next experience. I was about 10 years old at the time. It was around 3 a.m. I woke up, and I saw that same figure from my dream staring directly at me. Once I get up to go check and see who it is, it goes right through the hall. And when it goes through the hall, so do I. I go into the living room, and I remember something circling around me. And then I saw the figure staring right at me, sitting on the love seat. Then I went into the corner and went to sleep. I went to sleep. Note that my sister is pregnant. It will be relevant later on. So I go to sleep, and the dream has me in my house. I go outside, and sitting on the porch with my laptop, I look down at the road and see my father coming. All of a sudden he died. He fell over. I looked over at the door, and the figure from my dream was there. This experience was when I was 10 years old. 6 years later, I started talking to my biological father on Facebook when I wake up from this dream. So I start talking to him about the nightmare. And he said death usually comes before birth. So my sister is 3 weeks, possibly a month into her pregnancy. And this scared me to death because she is always having troubles with her pregnancy. The next day she went to the hospital. They said that she had lost her baby. It is very troubling to me that this has happened. I told my mother about this, and she didn't believe me. Here recently this thing has tried tormenting me. I still feel its presence, but here recently it has been quiet, except for I've been waking up with scratches here and there. It's been worrying me that no one knows this part yet, and it scares me because I don't want my family to get affected by this shit. I'm a 19-year-old female, and when this happened, I was around 13 or 14. It was a really hot day in mid-July, and I had my friend, we'll call her Liz, over to come and swim, and to stay the night since my brothers and dad were gone. And it was just me and Mom. At around 10 at night, my mom told Liz and I it was time to go in, considering that it was getting late and kind of cold. We weren't done messing around in the water, so we decided to go and put our feet in the bath and just talk. All was well, and we were having a good time, when I heard what I thought was my mom calling my name. "Emily!" I said yes, and there was a knock on the bathroom door. I leaned back and opened it slightly and said yes once again. There was no response. I closed the door, thinking that she was just yelling to make sure that we were actually back in the house. About 10 minutes later, Liz and I were still sitting in the tub when I heard my name being called once again. I was beginning to get frustrated because my mom wasn't answering me when she called. So I got out of the tub, flung the bathroom door open, and shouted, "What? Why do you keep calling my name?" My mom yelled back to me and said, "I'm not. So knock your fucking attitude off." I was uneasy now. We're the only ones in the house, and Liz is with me, so who else could be calling my name? I told myself my mom was fucking with me because I get scared so easily. So I closed the door to where there was just a crack, and Liz and I sat on the other side of the tub to where we could see the door. Another 5 minutes had passed when the door creaked a little bit further, and my name was said once again. I bolted up and said proudly, flinging the door open, "I knew that it was you, you liar!" No one was there. Liz was now scared, and I was almost pissing myself. We ran down the stairs so fast to tell my mom what was happening. Needless to say, we didn't go back upstairs until the sun was back out. Growing up, I lived in a house that my parents built out in the country. My brother and I would tend to wake up in the middle of the night and sleep in the lazy boys that were in the living room. Well, one morning, my brother had told me about how he had woken up out in the lazy boy. While entering the living room, he thought that he had seen a full-blown Indian headdress sitting at the dining room table staring directly at him. We all blew this off to childhood imagination. One day, though, my father was using a ditch witch to place a water line in the ground for the pool. Everything went fine without a hitch. Our father instructed my brother and I to go pick up all the rocks that were turned up from the digging machine. While doing so, Lee, who is my brother, picked up a clump of dirt that had a rock. He brushed it off, and go figure, it's an arrowhead. I never would have thought people before us lived nearby enough to hunt. To this day, I still have no idea what to believe, but with all that I've seen, and know this is kind of an odd one. Never heard of anybody meeting an Indian before. My sister Penny was always afraid of the upstairs at our house. She never went up there at night. Our main conversation every night went something like this. "Buffy, go upstairs and find me my white sweater, black jeans, and leather jacket." The clothing items would change from night to night, but I was always asked to go get her things. But she would not go up without an adult after dark. "Why can't you go up and get them?" "Because something is up there." "I sleep up there. Nothing has happened to me." "Just wait. Someday it will." Okay, I'll admit that it's creepy as hell up there. I'll give you the layout. There are 2 rooms that lead into each other. No hallway. And there is an attic above, and one on each side. The house is well over 100 years old, and there's a banister over the stairs that is closed off by a door. I remember Penny coming home from dates, and before she would take her boyfriend upstairs, she would send him up with a flashlight to check the closets and under the beds, even though I was in one of those beds. Once when our mother asked her why she would not sleep upstairs in her room, she rattled off numerous reasons. You can see small lights come out of the closet, and you could hear footsteps and heavy breathing in the attic. There is always a sense of being watched a little too closely. That is ridiculous. I've never seen anything or heard anything, I told her. You should stop letting her sleep on the couch every night. Mom replies, "She's okay. She can sleep where she wants. She's not hurting anything." I think my mom knew, but since nothing was bothering me at the time, she overlooked it. Better to have one daughter on the couch than 2. I even took the problem to my dad, being as he is always on my side. Mom seemed that she was always on Penny's side. Eventually my sister got married and moved out when she was 18, and I was 11. Then I guess the ghost or whatever thought it was my turn. So here's my experience. In the attic, I could hear stomping, and it was not in just one attic, it was all 3 of ours. They were whispering in the closet, like 2 children having a conversation. The conversations that I overheard were from talking about dolls or something. They were trying to figure out what happened to someone named Uncle Doffy, and sometimes it sounded as if they were discussing how they would run away. I did not get a bad feeling from the girls in the closet. I was always being watched all day and all night, and lived in a constant state of panic. When I was upstairs, every nerve was on edge. The worst thing was this big black shadow in the middle of the night asking where Penny was. The voice wasn't the voice of a kid. It sounded like it came from someone who smoked 4 packs a day for 50 years. The black shadow asked after my sister 6 times every single night. When I would not answer out of fear, the shadow would throw things at me. Books, figurines, even pictures. Then it was my turn to sleep on the couch, and then I understood my sister. It wasn't an excuse. She actually heard these things. I never understood why I didn't until after Penny moved out, and I was bullied by this ghost, or whatever it was. That's what the entity was, a bully, something that always had to have power over us, the young, powerless sisters that lived in the house. Fast forward 2 years after Penny was gone, she had her own home. My oldest sister, Jenny, couldn't afford the house that she was renting due to being in the middle of a divorce, brought her 3 kids, and moved in with us. Jennifer, which was 5, Kevin, who was 3, and Amanda, who was 2, which meant Jennifer would be staying with me, and we were both expected to sleep upstairs. We were all woken up all the time by stomping, and when Jennifer would start to cry from being scared, I would tell it was her, because the house was old. And that's what old homes did. They settled at night. Exactly what my mom always told me when I heard odd noises in our home. Jennifer's 6th birthday rolls around, and my mother buys her one of those creepy clown dolls. You know, the ones with a plastic head, a wire body under its clown clothing, and has the most insanely evil laughter. That clown was always going off by itself at night, never during the day. One night I decided that I had enough, so I go out of bed and went over to take the batteries out. But when I opened up the battery pack, there were no batteries inside. I told my mom and older sister, but no one cared, or they thought it was an overactive imagination. Penny believed me. So the next day I got up, threw it in the attic, but it would still go off, every night in the middle of the night. Then one day I came home, and the doll was out of the attic and sitting on the chair across from my bed. When I asked who put that there, no one knew. We ended up burning that doll. Penny came and burned sage in our home. Now that I'm a grown-up, my kids, who like to stay with my mom, always tell me about their things being moved and their chargers being jerked from the wall. But I still feel that it waits to this day for Penny to come home. Maybe because she feared it the most. I really don't know. But I know that that bully brought me a lot closer to my sister, whom I couldn't possibly live without now.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.